Welcome to another Ride Pure podcast, and this time we're joined by Santhosh Vijay Kumar, who's Royal Enfield Strategic Advisor, Adventure and Exploration. That's quite a title, and one of only 3 people ever to ride to the South Pole. Hey Santhosh, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Gordon. Nice talking to you again.
Yeah, and here we are in Goa, in the sunshine. But we're going to be talking about exploration in places where perhaps the sun wasn't shining. But I've got to say, I mean, we're actually on camera today, and rather than just an audio podcast. But you look really relaxed and chilled.
Yeah, I think so. I think my wife plays a part in that. But it's also the fact that the more number of people you meet, I think the better your knowledge is. And hopefully you've grown a little wiser by meeting people. I think motorcycles made that happen for me.
Shall we have a chat about Royal Enfields and exploration in particular? Because, you know, they've been a tool for explorers for the best part of the last century. But in more recent times, you know, Royal Enfield and exploration go hand in hand, really, don't they?
Yeah, so the thing is, it's not just through the ages, it's across the continents, right? Like it was born in the UK, and you had, and you know most about the people from UK who took the motorcycles across the world, across Africa and stuff, back when you would be lucky to get a telegram in places, right? So,
yeah.
So you know about all of that, but growing up in the 90s of India, when the economy just changed, we had access to the outside world through internet, right? For people like me who are passing out of college, Royal Enfield was the only way to see the world. At least when I say world, back then India was the world. I come from Bangalore, and it was unheard of in those times to ride from Bangalore to Leh. I mean, this is in the 90s, and as a child, I saw all these guys riding their motorcycle all the way to Leh, and you aspired to be one of them because it just felt so cool. And the Royal Enfield motorcycles history of exploration in India because the one about the UK, I think the UK and the rest of the world, you know it, people rode it across Australia and Africa, and you've done 2 trips across Africa, and you've done a ride to India, which was also something we all saw. And there's this person called Gordon May coming down. I think you met with the Mad Bulls in Chennai, right? Yeah. So we were like, oh, this guy's riding an old motorcycle. And so when you see stuff like that, so let's say if somebody wants to take a motorcycle around the world, there's going to be really worried. But then when somebody does it, you suddenly realize that he's a human being, same flesh and blood, and you can do it too. Yep. And we only knew about all of this because of Royal Enfield, and there was nothing else for us. And it was not just people doing it on Royal Enfield. Royal Enfield started off rides to the Ladakh in 1997. Royal Enfield organized the Himalayan Odyssey year on year. It got more people connected to motorcycling, exploring the Himalayas. It started from there, and then I joined the firm. And then we took it from outside of Ladakh to Nepal, then Bhutan, then we went to Tibet in 2013, and then it just mushroomed. We've done Colombia, we've done Europe, we've done Southeast Asia, we do Australia, and so exploration, that bug which was there maybe a little in UK with people like you, and maybe in India, now it's spread, I think, around the world, and people on Royal Enfields are exploring everything from the backyard to the most remote places in their countries.
Okay, shall we talk about riding on ice and heading to very cold places?
Very cold places, yeah.
And obviously we've been to cold places on the Indian subcontinent and up in the Himalayas, but you know I'm going to talk about one place in particular with you, and that's got to be the South Pole. Yeah. How do you persuade a business or a company to go ahead and do this? Because so far you've made no mention of the fact that that you've got to persuade your the bosses and the financiers, the accounts department, to part with a significant wedge to make this happen. So let's take a step backwards, Santhosh.
So I am laughing because I didn't have to pushed too hard to persuade them. So once I had a plan, so I worked on the plan in complete secrecy, figured out the costing. I put it out to the bosses, and when everyone saw it, when Siddharth saw it, I mean, he was like, "Wow, this is a super cool idea." And they were like blown. I was like, the only question was, "Can it be done?" I was like, "Yeah, I think so. It can be done." That was the only question, I think. So, yeah, a lot of people must be thinking that I've worked really hard on pushing it through. Just so happened I was lucky to be working for Royal Enfield. I didn't have to work that hard. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess it's indicative of the spirit of the company from the very top downwards.
Yeah.
That we are motorcyclists first
Yeah.
and foremost. We we're passionate about motorcycling, aren't we? And to give to have the opportunity to allow motorcyclists to undertake a journey of our own guys to undertake this journey. Yeah, it speaks volumes for them. So sorry, yep. So going back, you say Iceland. You did testing there. How did that go?
Oh, the first one was disaster. Total disaster. It's complete disaster.
What went wrong?
Oh, everything. Because just before the testing, the pandemic hit. There was a travel ban all over the world. So getting to Iceland was a pain. So you couldn't get the stuff that you wanted. You couldn't get tubeless tires. So we ended up reaching there with not the right kind of equipment we needed. And we also reached at a slightly warmer climate. It wasn't that cold. It was just minus 13.
Just minus 13. Yeah.
So it was. And during the day, the sun would come in and the snow would get softer.
Right.
Which is not similar to Antarctica. So we were digging ourselves a lot, and we had some 14, 15 pinch flats because we were running low tire pressures. That's the only way we could move, and we didn't have tubeless tires because the Himalayan didn't have tubeless wheels. So we used stock Himalayans, and we didn't have. So it was a stock Himalayan we took for the first time.
Yep.
Nothing apart, not even studded tires. We just had some snow chains. Nothing. The snow chains worked, but when you drop the tire pressures, we had flat tires. So we couldn't do too much of progress, and so we needed to do one more round of testing. And then what happened was we had gone for the first round of testing towards September. We thought we'll do a second round of testing in October and get back, but then the travel bans came in, so we couldn't get to Antarctica in 2020. So we shelved the project, moved it to 2021. And we decided we'll again test the motorcycles in April, which is perfect season. Again, there was a second wave or the third wave. I don't remember what wave it was, but the world was all over the place.
This is probably Delta variant. Or
Delta
something had gone
variant.
through.
Yeah. Yeah. So all of this is happening, and we need to get the bikes tested. And then again, we did the second round of testing in August, I think, end of July, August, in Iceland. And we needed to do it in end of July, August, because once we are done with it, we had to start shipping the motorcycles. The bikes had to go by sea to Antarctica, and the deadline was the 25th of September. We had to get the bike on the ship. So we went there in August. This time around, a lot of things worked. Things were better. Not to say it was perfectly smooth, but we knew that it was still going to be hard work. It would dig in now and then, but you had to push it out. But we were able to move at a considerable pace compared to the previous time. And the guys...
So now you had tubeless tires on?
Yeah, so we had tubeless tires. This is a different story, I'll come to it later. So we did try both heavy duty tubes and tubeless tires. We had both to check both of them. And we had them with rim locks, so that even if you have a flat, you can run.
Yeah.
So the guys at Arctic Trucks were also pretty impressed with the way the bike was moving, and they said, now you really have a chance. So, and suddenly everything had to be moved. We had to move the bikes back from Iceland into UK, get them, stripped apart. And then the news was we had the newer variant of the Himalayan. So we had to prepare two other bikes, not the testing motorcycles. We prepared two other motorcycles because we had the next variant, and we want to take the latest one. We just borrowed a lot of the tires and tubes from the previous one, and we did the one thing that made a big difference was the sprocket. It made a huge difference.
So this was your isolation period before going over to Antarctica.
Yeah, and we reached South Africa, and then there was the last variant. I don't know what it's called. And
Omicron.
Oh yeah, the Omicron hits in. The Omicron hits in, and it hits in South Africa, right? And so suddenly we don't know if we're going and not going.
Oh, that's right, because I think it started in South Africa, didn't it? Yeah. And there you are flying right into it.
And we were there, and we were like, oh my God, not one more. And for 7 days or 8 days, we were stuck in this villa, and we couldn't go out of the villa. So if you had ordered food, somebody would come and leave it at the gate, and then you would pick it up. And they had cameras monitoring us, making sure that we didn't walk out of the villa. This was the Antarctic logistics, I think. And so everyone was staying together for 7 days. It was jittery. Some people, Dane wanted to go out one day, and there was another guy who wanted to go out. I said nothing. We're just going to stay in this place and just wait for it. And finally, we got a call one day in the afternoon saying that you guys are flying tomorrow morning. I was like, okay, fine.
You were going stir crazy at this point.
At this point of time, we just wanted to get away from Cape Town. And then we got on the plane. It was a superb flight, a 4-hour long flight. And somewhere, I think, 2.5 hours into the flight, I could see something like a white speck on the sea. And then as the plane got close to it, I saw it was an iceberg that had chipped off and it just floated. And within 10 minutes after that, it was just white. It was only white.
So where did you actually land?
We landed at this place called Novo. I think the full name is Novo something. It's the Russian base. Mm-hmm. The Indian base is very close to that. It's at the so I can't say north or south, because if you look at the map, it's at the top of Antarctica. The one that you see, a regular map. So it's right at the top, at the edge. Mm-hmm. We landed there, and the coordinates were 70 degrees south. Yeah, we landed at 70 degrees south. 70, yeah.
Yeah, but from there, you actually had to cross the whole continent to get to the Ross Ice Shelf, and join the South Pole Traverse, which is the road you're going to... Road. It's not really a road, is it?
It's not really a road.
Trail blazed to take goods to the South Pole and the stations there. Yeah. So you had to cross the whole continent before you could actually start riding.
So we had to spend 18 days traveling across the continent. The distance roughly would be from the Canadian border to the Mexican border. That's the kind of distance that you do. And even with those special vehicles, there were days when we were traveling, when the car wouldn't be doing more than 10 kilometers an hour. So you're like basically inching yourself. So when you begin the journey, you have some hills and you have some features, and they look beautiful, and you're looking at crevices and hills and stuff. And 200 kilometers into the journey, it's just flat. There is not a single feature. So you could fall asleep for 6 hours, wake up, and you wouldn't know if you moved ahead.
Nothing has changed.
Nothing changes. Nothing changes, except for the wind and the sun. And when the wind comes in or the clouds come in, and the thing is, it's like being inside a ping pong ball. Like there is no edges, no boundaries, nothing. You're like lost in this white void. And we had to, and Antarctica is has a pretty high elevation. So we were touching about 4,000 meters above sea level on the plateau. And 4,000 meters at the pole is roughly 5,500 in the Himalayas, because the air is thinner at the poles.
Yeah.
So yes, a couple of people felt the altitude sickness.
I actually got a couple of texts on the satellite phone from your riding partner, Dean Coxon, at this time, saying just how much he was struggling with altitude sickness on this particular journey to get to the start of the ride.
Dean struggled with altitude. Touchwood, luckily I didn't have an issue. We had a breakdown in the middle of a blizzard. The truck broke down. The guys from Iceland, so when the truck broke down, the weather was good. Wasn't that bad. And I started looking. The truck wouldn't start. It looked like a fuel pump issue, and they spent 6 hours trying to fix it, and finally Yoi's dug a hole into the car and he's trying to fix it, and everything was frozen. So to even remove a bolt, he needed a electric blower.
Blowtorch,
That
yeah.
so he needed to remove the ice because he couldn't reach the nut. And for the longest time, for 6 hours at minus 35, minus 37, they were all freezing. We were all freezing. So we didn't camp because we thought we were going to fix this and move. So I was getting in and out of the car. I was trying to help them, just pass the tools and stuff. The wind was all over you, and I mean there was ice cake. I mean your face was literally covered in ice and snow. The beards and everything was, the eyelids were getting stuck. And after 6.5 hours, Yogi was like, okay, the weather is really bad. Let's just camp for the night. We camped for the night, and next day morning they fixed it. I think the issue, okay, the fuel wasn't coming. The issue was a fuel pump, I guess. They were thinking of something else. Anyway, we fixed it, kept moving, and then there were a couple of other breakdowns. We had to pick up fuel along the way. So these are fuel deposits that have been buried in the ice.
So have these been dropped by aircraft?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they've been dropped. And so we had to dig it out.
And how do you find those? Is there a beacon on them?
Yes.
Right, so you're tracking that beacon, yeah.
Not exactly beacon. So you have the location of the drop. And what also happens is they take these really slow tractors. Once the plane's dropped all of it, they go and place them in the right way, and then they stick bamboo things with flags.
Okay.
So in Antarctica, if there's a bamboo with a red flag, and the visibility is good, you can see it from, you can see I mean, you'll know there's something from like about 15 kilometers. 15 kilometers you can see. You can actually see all the way to the horizon. Because when we were getting to the South Pole, I could, the last 15 kilometers when my hands gave away, I could see the South Pole station. We were 15 kilometers away, but you could see the entire structure, as in like you knew there was some, because there's nothing else, anything man-made. Like for in Thiels, there's a toilet that's this big in the middle of nowhere. So that toilet was built for all the people who walk across Antarctica, because so it's midway between Union Glacier and Antarctica, so that they can have some kind of relief. And it's one of those toilets that takes all the refuse into like a you use the toilet and you press a lever, and so it just gets rolled up into plastic and goes into a bin. So someone needs to fly a plane once every week there to change the bin, so nothing is left behind. So it's, and you can see that from 25 kilometers. It first comes up as a black dot, and you've seen Thiels, and then it takes you 3 hours to get there because the ground is soft, but you see it 3 hours in advance. Yeah. So it's like that in Antarctica. And so then we went all the way to Ross. While we were going to Ross, so the Americans had moved the fuel 10 days before we reached there. So a lot of the track was it was smooth. It was like glass. It was hard.
Right, so just for the benefit of our listeners, this is how the South Pole Traverse was created. So the Americans can primarily bring fuel along, and dragging it by tractors on sledges.
Yes.
So that's why they're filling crevasses every year to reform the traverse.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's ambient air temperature. So that's not taking into account wind chill if you're actually out in it.
Yeah. With wind chill, it was minus 53. It went down to minus 53.
Minus 50. Right. Okay. Yeah. Not something you encounter every day.
So we parked there for, and by now we're all tired. We've done 400 kilometers at an average speed of, let's say, 15 kilometers an hour. So we must be doing about 30 hours straight up. So we camped for the day. We spent 12 hours. After 12 hours, I came out to see if there was any change. The wind had died down, but reduced. But everything was covered in snow. The tents and the camp. So we spent another 6 hours, and we couldn't see the track initially. We found the track. The sun became slightly better, and then we said, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's start riding this from some 430 kilometers. And the visibility was still very bad. The wind was still there, and if I lost sight of the truck, let's say the truck went away 10 meters ahead of me, I couldn't see the truck. I couldn't see the lights. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see the surface because the wind was. It looked like those smoke machines in the disco floors.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you can't see the floor. I couldn't see the floor. I couldn't see where I want to put the bike. So there was no way of seeing if there was a rut or a soft spot. Nothing and you're like trying to ride blind. And it was very cold. I tried to put about an hour's worth of riding there, and realized we moved 3 kilometers, and my hands and everything were frozen. We were like, okay. Then I started looking at the weather every half a degree from there onwards. So we called a couple of people and then realized that up to 87, there was zero visibility. 87 onwards, maybe you had 50% visibility, you had some sun.
This is 87 degrees south.
South,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So we decided, okay, if we can't do it from 84 to 90, and the wind was catching up, and the weather was catching up with us. It was going to travel inland.
It's chasing you.
Yeah, yes, chasing you. So we just, okay, let's just get to 87. We got to 87, started riding, and the first, I think, 60, 70 kilometers were brutal because the wind had really done its work. So it had moved a lot of the snow onto it. There were no paths. The same track that we had seen was completely, whitewashed is not the term I'd like to use, but yeah, it was whitewashed, completely gone. It was soft, it was horrible. I picked up a fight with the motorcycle. Yeah, so there was somewhere in between, I think, and I'm telling Dean that there's something wrong with the bike. Either the clutch plates, we've burnt the clutch plates out, or there's something wrong with the air filter. And he said, no, it's the altitude. But we've ridden the Himalayan all the way to 5,000 meters. I knew it wasn't. So, I've just went on for another half an hour. But every time it hit the soft spot, there was definitely no torque from the bike. I would have to literally push it. So imagine you're riding a motorcycle in minus 30, minus 35, but you're sweating inside.
Yeah.
Because you're doing so much work. And then at one point I said, no, there's something really wrong with the bike. I need to check it. We got it on video. So there was no camera on, but I asked the guy to start recording. We removed the side panels, removed the air filter. So it was packed with ice. There was no way. It was like the bike wasn't getting
suffocating.
Yeah, it was suffocating. It was like literally crying. So we cleaned it, and then suddenly the bike was flying. It felt like it was flying.
Yeah.
It wasn't flying, but it was doing 30 kilometers per hour all of a sudden. And then we pushed and we did a really good stretch. And now we thought we have a good chance. And then we picked up speed. And with speed comes a little low confidence also. And you're also a little tired, right? So your reactions become a little slow. And I had a really bad fall. Then I had another bad fall. The second fall kind of told me that because the second one I hurt the shoulder. The first one I hurt my elbow. Both of them were hurting for the next 3 months. I was like, okay, if we break something now, because
you're in trouble.
you're in trouble. I'm like, okay, let's just cut the speed down a little. So we did about 180 kilometers pretty easily, but that 180 kilometers must have taken us about 15 hours. So we're on the bike for 15 hours at really cold temperatures. So now your body's tired. Suddenly your riding kind of drops, and we were like falling a lot more when it got really soft because you couldn't see it. The visibility was better, wasn't the best, and we were within the last 1 degree. And then the last 1 degree we expected is going to be really, really easy because that was the hardest bit when we had gone in. But while we were coming, so when we were riding back, and it was a scene out of Mad Max. You see a whole city ahead of you, and you can see it from a distance. You can see it from 20 kilometers. And then I realized what happened. So the second run for the oil had begun. So by the time we were coming back, the guys that started off from the South Pole and moved, 200 tractors or whatever, along with their... So they also travel with mobile cabin homes.
This was coming back towards you.
Coming back towards us, and they had completely demolished whatever was there. So once the tractors or stuff, and this time they don't have oil, so they're just coming with empty tractors. They're just creating ruts.
Yeah.
So you have those ridges.
Right.
And there is no bladders to flatten them at the back. So right now we were going back through the worst kind of ice possible, because they were like it was like corrugated sheet but soft, and there was not a single centimeter of hard surface left. So I would try and find. They had these sledges, try and find these lines of the sledges, but they were never straight or whatever, they were wavering. So you would go and suddenly you're slipping into the soft stuff, and then you have to fight it out, try and imagine this is the size of, let's say, about 100 feet. Out of the 100 feet, you need to, and when you're riding and you're looking at it, 100 feet, 150 feet, you need to figure out which is the hardest surface. It's very tough to so based on the sun angle. You can't see, there are no shadows, there are no sharp edges, there's no definition, nothing. And every time you made the wrong choice and got to the wrong soft side of it, you just felt like punching yourself. Because, what happens is you're telling yourself, no, that's the right one. And then says another voice in your mind says, no, remember it was this side the last time. And when you get in, you want to hit yourself. And
it sounds like whichever route you'd chosen, you were going to fall.
Yeah. And then after a point of time, we just gave it up. We soldiered on, and then then everyone was tired because even the content guys, and we had flat tires and stuff, so everybody was. And we also had 4 bad days before that, right? Like continuously, we've not had a hot meal, so we're all eating jerkies and chocolate bars and stuff. There's no hot. We ran out of water. So we ran out of water multiple times, because you melt ice, and you put them in bottles. But then the day is so long, you finish it. Now, to make water again, it takes you 1 hour. It takes you 1 hour to have water.
To get the temperature up.
It takes you 1.5 hours to put up the camp, and then 1 hour to heat the water maker so that the snow goes into it, and then another half an hour to boil it. So getting a cup of coffee, if you want a cup of coffee when we were doing, was if we didn't have a camp, it would take us 4.5 hours. If we had a camp, it would take us 1.5 hours. So you woke up in the morning, you couldn't get a coffee. You had to do work 1.5 hours. You make water for everyone.
Completely surrounded by frozen water, but nothing to drink.
And the funny thing is, sometimes you would be boiling your water, but you just step out for a minute and come back, and someone's come and poured it in their cup of soup or coffee, and suddenly like, my water, I boiled it. Yeah, but it was fun. We all got along pretty well. Yeah, so we came back there, and then everyone's like, maybe we should camp, because the weather looked good. Now we had beaten all the bad weather. The sun is perfect. Maybe we should take a 8-hour, 10-hour rest, but then something in me told them, I just wouldn't want to listen. I said, no, we are going. We are not stopping. We're just getting to the South Pole. And everybody thought I was being a little bit of a prick back then. But then there was something in my mind that was telling me that, no, if you wait, you're done for. Because if we had rested that day, I don't think my body would have gotten back to ride back again. So we just went on, reached the pole.
So both Dean and you, I know Dean had quite a bad fall. So both of you were
both
of you were carrying injuries.
Yeah, Dean fell way early, and he kind of pulled his groin, so he couldn't get on the bike easily.
What was that feeling like of actually, you've gone through all this planning and dreaming, and then all this pain, this hardship? What was the feeling like of actually getting there, of making it? I mean, you said you shed a tear, but what did it actually feel like?
I'm not a very spiritual or religious person, but you read about people, and you see them when they reach a place of holy pilgrimage and stuff like that. I think this is the closest I could ever feel of anything of that sort. I mean, I'm not a very spiritual person. I mean, when I say spiritual, I'm saying this whole religious spirituality and the creator, that doesn't go with me. But this was, it makes you think a little beyond everything else that you know in life. I mean, it was. I know they say there's a lot of, you go through a lot of suffering. You find some calm or happiness. Yeah, I think, that one moment was, I think I felt like I had lived on this planet. Those 30 days were the most intense, but I felt my life was worth it.
It's absolutely fascinating hearing of your exploits. Thank you for sharing those
Thank you for having
with
me on the
us.
show.
Really inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you for having me on the show, Gordon, and thank you for running down to India a long time ago, writing books about people who've ridden, because I always think an adventure begins with somebody's book. So, yeah,
Thank you very
thank you
much.
so much.